Hey everybody, this is Dan with Pain Free You. Today I have the pleasure of introducing Christiana um, Michaelberger, and she's from Hamburg, Germany. And Christiana was in my group for a little while, and she's now volunteered to share her story, her road to recover with this mind-body concept and the work that she's done, and that much of what we do in my group coaching. So welcome, Christiana. I appreciate you
Thank
being
you
willing
for
to
allowing me to share my. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate you being willing to share your story with my audience, and hopefully your story can help people out. I'm sure it will. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to share because I think it's really important that people know that there is help out there when it feels totally hopeless.
Right.
It did for me, certainly.
Mm.
So, how did it all start? When I worked through the first PDF you have in your resources, I thought I pretty much had all symptoms you list, nearly all of them. And it started already at 6, 7. I grew up in a household with a codependent mother and a father who couldn't manage his aggressions. So it wasn't really safe. No wonder. With 6, 7, I had tinnitus. I very vividly remember sitting in the back on the right side, and I had this whistling in my ear. Now, my mother was a pediatric nurse, and I asked her that I had this whistling. And she said, yeah, that's normal. Just don't listen to it. Everybody has it. So that was a good handling, I think. I had tinnitus all my life, and I just never cared, fortunately. Then I think it was around 13 that I started to feel abdominal pains and developed a really heavy eating disorder with basically going on diets, breaking them, going back on diets. Terrible. It lasted until my 60s.
Wow.
So that was a long time. Yeah. Then in the early 20s, I had an interesting phenomenon. I would twist my ankle over and over again. Once, sometimes the right one, sometimes the left one. I don't know how this happened. I ended up in casts each time. One time I even broke it, but just a straight thing. And I didn't need surgery, so it was so strange. And I had neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain. And I already remember to having felt tired in my early 30s, that I just felt, how can people do all this stuff? I just can't. Now I have to add, I'm wired autistically, so the sensory input and the ability to manage tasks just takes a lot of energy already. I didn't know that. I had no toolkit whatsoever. And so I just wondered why I was tired all the time. So that was certainly part of it. But what happened later didn't have anything to do with it. In my mid-30s, I had a disc prolapse with a limp foot, so a nerve was compressed. That healed within 3 months, and the back surgeon said, no, I won't do surgery. Even if I stroke you every day, it will just take 3 months and it'll be gone. And so it was, but the pain lasted for a long time. I had no clue. I just thought, okay, you just live with it. And at some point it disappeared. In my mid-40s, I was so tired. I took psychotherapy. I would wake up in the morning and think, oh no, I'm a physician myself,
Okay.
and a specialist for psychotherapy and psychoanalysis. It's embarrassing. I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And I thought, every one of my patients is feeling better than I do. This is not right. So I took psychotherapy again. You know, everybody has to have this training analysis. And it worked somewhat, but it didn't last long. And then I got very tired again. And then I hit 50, and it was 9/11. It was such a strange co-occurrence. During that time, the gynecologist had discovered a a polyp in my uterus and said, oh, that's no problem. You don't need surgery. You just take some hormones and then you stop them and it'll bleed off and everything will be fine. I just checked that it's gone. Fine. I thought it's like the anti-baby pill. I didn't think anything about it. Now, the bleeding was much stronger, but really not worrying at all. And then on 9/11, my last patient comes in and asks me, did you already see the news? And I said, no, I didn't. And then she told me what had happened. Just the first plane had happened. And I thought, yeah, well. And we did the session. And afterwards, I made myself some dinner and then sat in front of CNN. And I couldn't tear myself off and saw the whole unfolding. And after 2 hours, I wanted to get up and just go to bed, and I couldn't. It was as if somebody had pulled a plug. There was zero energy left. Oh. And this was so weird, and I couldn't understand it at all. What is going on? And I somehow dragged myself into bed, and the next day I just had to counsel everybody. And I just counseled them for the week because it didn't feel like I would get better soon. And that's how it went. I was totally unable to do anything except maybe for half an hour a day, lying around on the couch or bed, and that was it. And I went to the doctor, they did all the blood tests, everything was very fine. And it just dragged on. I went to a psychiatrist. They gave me some SSRIs, which made it worse, so I dropped them. Okay. And in the end, I ended up on disability for 2 years. Wow. I was very, very lucky that I also had disability insurances. And so I didn't get into financial trouble at that point. I never did. Good. And I didn't know what to do. Nobody could offer me anything. And then my hearing went. I got a tinnitus on my left ear that was as loud and as deep as standing in a machine room on a big ship, on a container ship. Yeah, really loud. I could hardly hear. And at the same time, I was oversensitive to noise. Mm-hmm. That was so strange. And so nobody knew what that was either. And now I'm also a musician and I like to play music. And my ENT specialist said, maybe you stop playing because we don't know what this is. And maybe it influences it or not. And I thought, yeah. But after a week, I thought, oh no, why? I can play like piano. That will work. So, and then I went into a hospital, which I had Googled, but they were specialized on this, and they thought it's kind of too much endolymph produced in the inner ear, and then it moves the membrane, which contains all the hearing cells, and that gives the noise. But at the same time, the hearing is disabled on that ear. And they had a treatment plan for that, and the treatment plan worked. So I went into this hospital for 3 weeks and had all these treatments, and I came out and it was basically gone, but my energy hadn't come back at all. So I was still there with this no energy, and I didn't know what to do. So I took the whole 2 years disability, and then I went back to work part-time, 20 hours a week, but that wasn't really sustainable, actually. And after a few years, I just stopped, and I only did substitutions in hospitals for short, like 5 days or something like that, and that was it for a month. So I still was looking for some help, and I checked out all psychiatrists in the area, and I found one who had a lot of experience with a lot of things, and she suggested an antidepressant that works on the adrenaline and noradrenaline receptors, and that worked like a charm. So within months, I could sleep again, which had just escaped me all the time. And I gained my strength back, and I somewhat functioned again, still on a reduced level. But I thought, yeah, okay, maybe after burnout, you just never recover. And I lived with that for 20 years. Now, in 21, that was during the COVID time, and we had lockdown and everything, I started to have atrial fibrillation, which was rather scary for me because one of my closest friends had it, and she had had a procedure against it, and she had very heavy side effects. And I thought, this is not going down a good road. And then I suddenly started to get this orthostatic dysregulations. I couldn't stay in the shower for long enough to wash my hair, for example. I would just feel like I'm going to faint. And I had to take beta blockers for this atrial fibrillation, which didn't help, and I didn't tolerate them either. So within a year, I came very close and then to the procedure that needed to happen, because my pulse was at 170 when I had it intermittently. And that was too much. I couldn't do anything with that. And so I finally agreed, and I have a lovely cardiologist, and he found me a really good surgeon. And it was done, and it went well. And I came home, entered my living room, and thought, yeah, that's done. It's never going to come back, and it never did.
Okay.
So that was nice. But what did stay was I still couldn't stand up. And I thought, yeah, you haven't been in such a good shape. You just need to train systematically. You know how to do it. I used to run. So just take your smartwatch out, measure your pulse when you go out, and start increasing speed and length. I started with walking, but that didn't work. I couldn't increase. If I tried to, I just felt worse. And I thought, what is this? This is not how it is supposed to be. But I had no idea. And I would have never had any idea if I hadn't had a friend then who was diagnosed with chronic fatigue. And this was a friend I would have never accused of not trying hard enough. And she was just such an alpha type. And I thought, chronic fatigue, I really wonder what that is. And so I started researching in all the medical sources and found all this interesting stuff about the morphological changes that happen. And I thought, oh my God, this is a real disease. I didn't know that. And I thought, okay, now before I go on, I can self-diagnose myself. I have that too, because especially this not being able to train and the counter effects with the training, if you don't do it nicely, were very clear. And I thought, okay, now what can I do? So I Googled therapy. And up came a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels that offered explanations. And that was the first time when I heard that fatigue could have anything to do with stress and heightened cortisol levels and things like that. And I thought, now this gets interesting. Now I start to understand why I had the burnout.
Sure. Were you officially diagnosed with burnout?
Never. Burnout wasn't even a diagnosis back then. In 2001, in Germany, we didn't have the diagnosis. It wasn't in the diagnostic catalog. I was diagnosed with depression, but the antidepressants didn't, the major one didn't help. And so I thought, okay, there seems a light at the horizon. And I follow that track, and I listen to a lot of YouTube videos, and I applied for programs now. This is really for everybody. It's just very difficult to find a fitting program. Like I applied for one where you had to surrender to their whole food plan and time increasement plan and all plan. and how long you were up and when you had to be outside or not. And I thought, nah, that's not for me. I'm not that type. I'm more intuitive.
Right.
And then I came across the book by Alex Howard, Decode Your Fatigue, which I found very helpful to understand that this is just what happened if you're the type of person you are, which with the past I had. And yeah. And so I started to dabble around with some methods on Skillshare. There was a course about pacing yourself. I thought, that sounds good. I'll try it. And I strongly recommend everybody not to do that. So this is what happens. I had a list where I rated each morning how I felt, how much energy I had out of 10 or 6, whatever. And and each time I rated, it went down. And I thought, what is this? I'm not doing anything different. Why is it going down? And in the end, my window was like 4 times 20 minutes a day where I could do anything again. And I thought, no, this is not going to work. I will just stop this now. Then I found this training resources from a sports university in Cologne, and they had tried to train people with fatigue with measuring the pulse under exertion. So I tried that, and it shouldn't go above 80 something. Now I'm living in a part of the town where it's either uphill or downhill. There is no straight line here. So it will go up. And I immediately felt worse again. And I thought, this is all, no. Tracking yourself like you have unstable blood pressure and need to have a machine and a computer to record it, that doesn't work. It just makes you feel worse because it feels so dangerous then.
Yeah, it fuels the perception that I'm broken and look at all the weird stuff I'm doing.
Totally.
Right.
So then I found a course. I discussed it with a colleague, and he said, yeah, he looked at it. It looked interesting, but it was a little bit generic. And I said, well, I'll book it, I'll see. And in the beginning it was nice. It had nice relaxation, guided meditations, things like that. But then it went over to Enneagram and I think also what sign you are. And I thought, no, I don't think this is for me. And then I had come across Raylan Eagle in the meantime. And I saw your interview with her. And what you said made so much sense to me. Perceiving danger where there is none. Because it had just happened to me that I had gone shopping. And I always just ordered online and just picked it up at that point to stay within my 20 minutes window. And I went across the parking lot and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, something's going to happen. There was fear. And I thought, and then there was this question, will we survive? And I looked at the full cart and I thought, yeah, I think so. And it was like, what is going on here? I had no clue. Anyway, but when you said that it's about perceiving danger, I thought, this is me. I immediately booked the course. I just saw this one interview.
Right.
And then I first started dabbling around with it a bit. At that point, I had hip pain and knee pain because I had twisted my knee and I had an arthrosis, and my not very orthopedic anatomical memory designed all kinds of story what was going on, which logically couldn't be going on anyway. And so with your help, with, just thinking, oh, well, it's probably not that bad, just walk a little. I did it and I started to walk again. And then somewhere you said, yeah, and if you can't walk without limping, then limp. And I thought, oh, I'll try that. And then I walked pain-free. And I thought, this stuff is absolutely working, but I'm now going to focus on my fatigue because that's what bugs me most. I felt I can't spread my attention so far that dilutes it somehow. And so I just focused on my fatigue. And whenever it sets in, I just try to calm the brain and talk to the brain and just check that there is nothing happening. Now, since I'm this Buddhist teacher we talked about before we recorded, I've gone a path where I have no sense of identity left. So first of all, I only had known for a few weeks that I had chronic fatigue, and there was nothing to identify with. It's not that I was broken, I was sick, I was wrong in some, it was just, this is the wrong programming. It's like a programmer, change the program.
Teaching your brain, I'm broken, I have fatigue.
Right,
I have
yeah.
chronic fatigue syndrome, and we become identified by that. So you do not identify with that.
No, not at all. And that was really helpful. That was also helpful in dealing with symptoms, because it wasn't like I had to stare at them the whole time. It was comparatively easy to pull myself away and say, okay, now let's deal with the cause. Mm-hmm. And the most impressive and turnaround event happened while I was driving. The whole time I was actually in England camping out, because I knew from my former fatigue periods that I always feel better when out in nature. I'm a car camper, so I have a Berlingo, and I camped out, and I was outside all the time, and my sleep came back very fast. It was pretty wacky before, and I felt really good already. Still, I couldn't do everything, and I was tired out easily, but I felt much better already. So when I drove back to Germany, I was in Belgium on the motorway, and all of a sudden there was again this kind of, there's a threat. And I thought, no, here's no threat. There's hardly a car around. I'm the only one on the motorway. And I thought, this is interesting. Now it was pretty strong. And I thought, okay, so what can I do? Now, fortunately, just the day before, I had seen a video about 20 ways of calming your brain, or something similar title. And so I took what I remembered and what resonated. So first I put my hand on my heart and said, you're all right. Everything is fine. I checked all mirrors. There is nobody. Mm-hmm. And then I just, had a deep breath and another deep breath, and it became a bit better, but not fully. And then I started to smile, and I strongly remembered you saying you'd have to do it for 5 minutes. So I couldn't really smile, but and it was enough for the brain to think that I was smiling. And after like 2.5 or 3 minutes, I think, such a sense of safety set in. The fear completely calmed. It was like a storm calming. It was a miracle to me. And I knew this is the main stage. This is what I have to do. Everything else is sideshow. And from that point on, I could just be laser focused on this. Okay, this is what you have to do. And that really helped a lot. I tend to be kind with my symptoms. So how I worked with them was, when they came, like I was thinking of going back to work, and my fatigue set in again, right? Oh my God, I can't handle it. And I thought, yeah, okay, that's how it feels. Now let's calm the brain first. Let's calm it. And so I used any of the methods that just came handy, and often I just talked with the brain. For example, I was having a dentist's appointment very early the next morning, so I would have to get up at 6:30. Now this is for me far out of any range. I'm on the Einstein fraction in needing sleep with 9 to 9.5 hours. And so my brain was, wow, this is going to be a terrible day because you're going to be so tired and you won't sleep because you have to get up early. And then like hearing my thoughts, I thought, yeah, that's what I thought too. But this is actually completely illogical. And I told my brain, hey, listen up. I'm not tired because I have to get up early. I'm tired because you're terrorizing me all night that I have to get up early and I'll be tired. And it was really like the brain said, oh, I didn't mean to.
Right.
I slept the whole night and I was fully rested the next day. And now I don't have issues with dentist appointments, but I have issues with public transport because of the sensory input. And I had forgotten my earplugs. And now I was traveling in rush hour when the metro is really full. And I thought, I hope my brain doesn't cop out. The brain, when you're autistic, can just shut down, just like that. And then it just doesn't function any longer. And I thought, okay. And I said, told my brain, just don't freak out. There are ways how we can get rid of this noise, of the perception of the noise. Because when I hyperfocus, I don't hear anything. Which used to annoy my partner because just standing next to me saying my name didn't do a thing to me. I didn't hear it.
Right.
And yeah, and so I said, you're going to go and hyperfocus. So I pulled my phone out and worked. And just really focused on it. And really, it went very well. Nothing happened. And I had a very relaxed day and even went shopping, which is kind of the second worst thing for me to do. And after the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
And so that went all well. And that gave me the confidence that this is totally manageable. And from that point on, it got better even faster. And I had about 2 weeks left to work. And when I started to work, the fatigue was gone. And what I realized then, I have a lot of email interactions, and they were the hardest thing for me to do before because I couldn't grasp the content of an email.
Okay.
And I thought I have to change how I work to one-on-one video because that's easy for me. But then I noticed that my cognitive functions also had improved a lot. And I could very well grasp the content of an email, summarize it, and answer. That was a nice surprise. Yeah. And then something very interesting happened. Now, this is only like 4 weeks ago. And it happened completely unexpectedly. There had been one situation in our home when I was 13, which was the most dangerous. And I had been a witness of that. And so I always remembered it, but I never had felt the feelings I had in that, and I wasn't keen to do so. I think that's enough remembering it. Now, I woke up during the night and suddenly had a flashback of that situation, a very short flashback, and then went to sleep again. And a few nights later, I had a flashback, but with an altered ending. That was something very interesting. I didn't just stand frozen, but I actually walked out upstairs and called the police.
Interesting.
And while I was waiting for the police to come, all the feelings I had never felt in my whole life were there. They were beyond my emotional repertoire. But I think it was really good to feel them. And then I went into a kind of meta perspective and saw how my whole life had been programmed by permanently feeling this impending danger. Right. And being on the lookout. And in addition, try to save as many people as possible. So that all fell away. That was such a beautiful feeling. It took like 2 days to settle, and I just let it settle. And some feelings came back, some didn't.
Yeah, I have a question. Why do you think that awareness of that situation and the flashbacks and all that occurred, I'm questioning whether or not that may have happened because of your increased awareness of your brain's perception of danger, how the danger had been carried through pretty much your entire life, and the fact that you had become very, I guess, very consistent at reminding yourself that you were safe. Do you think that the feeling of safety in the present allowed the release of these past very difficult situations, or am I just kind of grasping at straws here? Because I don't know if I'm
No, this
on
is
target or
exactly what I think. I thought I had to feel this safe to be able to feel that.
okay. But as long
Yeah.
as you were feeling that impending doom, your brain was doing a really good
Hmm.
job of keeping that old stuff locked away.
Yeah. Really well done, brain. Well done, brain.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because
Yeah.
I've definitely had people that I've worked with that start out the process like I don't know what I'm feeling. It's just this
Mhm.
overwhelming um, sense of doom and all that stuff. But as they feel safer and safer and safer in the present moment, sometimes they are able to allow the emotions from the past, the emotions that are present that were buried from the past, they just get more in tune with their emotional
Mhm.
state. And that's
Mhm.
really an interesting story. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I was
Mhm.
just curious.
No, no, that's a very good question. I think that is the case. I needed to feel safe enough to feel that.
Wonderful.
Yes.
All right. So I didn't mean to
Yes.
cut you off.
No, that's fine. And other symptoms that disappeared along with the fatigue are food sensitivities. I used to have food sensitivities. One I just remembered last week because my friend reminded me. So one was peanuts. I couldn't eat raw peanuts at all. I would get bellyache. And one day I just thought, oh, these peanuts look so great. It's so fresh. I'm going to buy them. And I bought them and I ate half a bag and nothing happened.
Wow.
And I thought, oh, nice. And I was on a very tiny island last week with a friend, together with a friend, and she bought spaghetti, but she likes the whole wheat spaghetti. And she thought, oh my goodness, I forgot that you can't eat them. And I looked at her and I said, I think I can. And I could, I had no trouble.
That's awesome.
And my hip pain, my knee pain is gone. I have such an amazing flexibility now. One morning I woke up, and usually, I have to do really a lot of gymnastics to get my joints into a position to move normally.
Mhm.
And that morning, everything was totally loose. There was nothing. I just got up as if nothing ever had happened. Though I do have a little bit of arthritis, but my surgeon said, no, no, we're not going to do surgery. This is not enough. So that's what happened.
Yeah. So if I can interject here, my take on the muscles relaxing is that when our brain is in a mode of protection, feeling that there's some danger, a normal response is to tighten up muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And many people work on the muscles, stretch, stretch, do this, do all sorts of stuff to loosen the muscles, loosen the muscles. But what you found is as your brain became more and more convinced, authentically, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm really not in danger, and you started to understand and connect the dots between all this mind body work and all your symptoms and your experience. When your brain felt safer, what did it do with the muscles?
Right.
It just allowed
Yeah.
you to relax. So now you didn't need to do your 20, 30 minutes of gymnastics to move your body. It was just, we're okay. And your brain
Yeah.
let go of that protective tension.
Right.
Brilliant. Love it. What else do you want to share?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Um, so I think the key to healing was that I very quickly, I think within a month, found what I have to focus on. And this is autism power. When you know what to focus on, you can focus.
You are
And
you are on the autism spectrum. Is that what you're saying?
I am on the spectrum, yeah. Yeah. And so I focused on that and always directed it back there. So when there were any symptoms like pain or belly or whatever, I just said, I just felt it. And when it was bad, I said, yeah, that doesn't feel good. Okay, let's turn to the source and calm the brain.
Mhm.
I think it's very important. There was a time, a long time ago, when I did a lot of inner child work. And I think being kind is really important. Otherwise, the brain just signals more danger if you're rough and say, hey, get over it.
Right. Yeah, I like that phrase.
And that way,
I like that phrase, turn to the source.
yeah,
Like, okay, I know the
right.
symptom is there, but I'm going to turn to the source and really
Mhm.
calm the brain.
You know, it often reminded me of fire extinguisher. When I worked in the hospitals, we had fire drills regularly. And the most favorite fire source was the paper bin where patients had thrown their hot cigarette, maybe not even extinguished, and then the trash would just burn. And now, this fire and smoke, that is just the symptoms. But if you aim the fire hose at the smoke and fire, it won't help because the trash is still burning. It has to be aimed at the trash. And so it really needs to be aimed at the source. Otherwise, this fire just doesn't get extinguished.
I love that. That's neat. So how are you doing today? Like not today, but like how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Like we had a long travel, all day long travel to this island and then ferry and then getting our luggage out of the car because you couldn't park where we lived and dragging it there and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't even think of being tired. It was just normal. I could just normally lift everything. I could normally walk upstairs. I could just do everything normally.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Would you say
and
fatigue was really your biggest, most challenging symptom?
absolutely, absolutely. You know, I sorted the pain under old age. I never worried about it. So, yeah, that's how old age is probably going to be like.
But
So, yeah,
even that, it seems like you're not dealing with those pains anymore.
no. So that's really great. One thing that can appear during the journey is heightened symptoms. And I found that coming to the group, my brain just got ideas of symptoms it had never had, but hey, we can try that.
Yeah.
I thought, no. We're not going to get ideas any longer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's an interesting phenomenon. Symptoms can become contagious. And you
right.
don't want people to stay away from a group, which can be very helpful because they're afraid of
Mhm.
hearing other people's stories. So for anybody that comes in, I'll just really encourage them to say, their story is not my story, right?
Yes,
And you
right.
saw that and you noticed that, and you were very quickly able to, put a stop to it with
Hmm,
clarity of
hmm.
thought, understanding what's going on, and a decision to go, no, we're not going to do that. So I am not going to fuel those new symptoms with fear because you saw the source, the cause.
Hmm.
Cool.
Right. Yeah, it's very, very cool. And I'm so grateful because I wouldn't have found the clue to this. Spontaneously, this wasn't in me. This was knowledge that just wasn't in me.
It's not intuitive. It is
No, not
once
at
you
all.
understand it, once you truly understand
Hmm.
it, you start to see through through the smoke, so to speak, and you start to realize this is all just the brain trying to keep us safe from perceived dangers, and
Right,
I'm not really in danger.
right.
Once you start to see that and consistently remind yourself that there is no impending doom, there's no something horrible going on and the brain starts to feel safer and you have
Mm,
those kind, compassionate conversations and calming your brain, the brain eventually goes, oh, we don't need that symptom or this symptom or that symptom. And all of your
mhm,
energy kind of returns to life. Like
mhm.
you went on this holiday on the island and you were able to do whatever you wanted to do without
Yeah,
having to think, what are my limits? Am I approaching my limit? Do I need to stop here before I crash or any of those other things? You were just able to go and enjoy your time on the island.
right. And we visited a wonderful exhibition for 2.5 hours, and I didn't have to think, can I still stand? Do I need to look for something to sit on? And we could just enjoy ourselves. It was great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when you know you've recovered because you have recovered from the fear.
right, right, exactly.
Recovery is not, I'm feeling better. Recovery
Hmm.
is, I'm feeling better and I'm not afraid of it if it comes back
Hmm.
or something
Right.
should happen because that clarity and that lack of fear is what led to you feeling better in the first place. But if you're still
Hmm.
terrified and overreact, or as I call it, freak out if symptoms show up sometime, you're not recovered completely yet because you're still allowing the
Mm.
symptoms to scare you as opposed to you leading the way and saying, hey, brain, I'm actually okay.
Yeah,
Thank you for the
right.
symptom. I appreciate the warning, but we're not in trouble, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
you managed to put that together in your head and in your life and in your way of navigating the world that you are no longer afraid of these symptoms.
Right,
And you mentioned you're like,
right.
well, these pains, I'm just getting older. But even those went away.
Yeah. Mhm.
Even those went away. It means age
Yes,
does not
I
have to
didn't
hurt.
think of them as anything, it was just like, yeah,
Aging does not have to hurt.
right, right. Yeah, that's a very important message. Hmm.
I agree.
I'm not even limping at all any longer. So I used to have a slight limp from the hip. Yeah.
Yeah, but no kidding.
Next week, I'm going to start my gym training
What was that?
because I think I'm going to start with the gym
Oh, the gym.
because my muscles, they are kind of not as strong as they used to be, and I think they can gain a little bit. But yeah,
Here's a key to remember, though, for anybody watching. I don't think Christiana is going to the gym because she's trying to fix anything. She just wants to stay
hmm,
fit and healthy and be stronger. Right?
yeah, right.
What else do you want to share? Anything else?
I think I said the most important part. So it is really possible to also overcome chronic fatigue with this method. And on the side, all the other little symptoms that might be around.
What about the tinnitus? Is that done?
No, that's still there. That's just there. I don't know.
But is it screaming anymore like you're in a machine room?
No, not at all. That went away when I was in the hospital back then. It
Okay.
went down very much, yes. Hmm.
You have a little bit that's not bothersome.
No, not at all.
Beautiful. Well, I love to hear all this stuff. I mean, you've got a lifetime of symptoms from at least 13. Um,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
younger with the tinnitus. Um, what I think was interesting for you is that when you went for a medical procedure for the ears, for the AFib, you were very specific in saying, that's it, it's done. You made a
Right.
decision to accept that the procedure is the right procedure. This is going to work for me. I no longer need to worry about this anymore. Because there are people, if they go into a medical procedure with a lot of fear and come out of it with a lot of fear, and what if it doesn't work? Symptoms can persist, even if any mechanical challenge or any medical challenge has been overcome. Your willingness to decide that was that was taken care of, it's done, allowed those procedures I'm sure the procedure helped, but it also allowed you to not worry about it moving forward because of your
Mhm.
determination and decision to say, this is done. I no longer
Yes.
have to worry about it or fear it, which is beautiful.
You know,
Hmm.
it's always like that with medical procedures for me. I just think I still do have some trust in my colleagues, and I think that they're going to do a good job. And I have this very good friend who had the very serious side effects with the AFib procedure. She always thinks she will have all the side effects nobody else has.
Yeah.
She's the rare exception. Yeah, and bingo, yes,
Which
she is.
means, which means the perception of danger
Yes, right.
is the driving force behind symptoms, whether there be
Yeah.
a physical cause of something. Look, AFib, if there was some defect in the heart that needed to be corrected, then that's a real thing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
your mindset going in and trusting your colleagues and
Mm-hmm.
expecting the best gave you a
Mm-hmm.
much different result than this other person who expected the worst
Mm-hmm.
and got the worst. So even
Mm-hmm.
in
Right.
legitimate procedures, your mindset is really, at least in my opinion, the determining factor. And it just goes to
Mm-hmm.
prove that real medical stuff, mind body stuff, the mindset, the belief, the recovering from fear, not hyper focusing and looping on all the bad things that might happen. That's the difference.
Mm.
That's the
Yes,
difference between
I
success
I
and
think
going
it,
wrong. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think that is because I'm basically a positive person. Like I went into this AFib procedure room and it looked like a spaceship, really impressive with all these monitors and things you were hooked up to. And I thought, wow, they're really looking after everything. I don't need to worry. I was very impressed.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unless you've got any words of wisdom to share, I think we can wrap this up. Any last words?
Yes, the most important is really make sure your brain knows it's safe with whatever works for you. That's the only thing that matters. The only thing.
Yeah. The brain.
Not positive think. Yeah.
Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead. I'll let you finish.
Not positive thinking or anything like that. Just making sure the brain knows there is no danger and cools down.
Mhm. Yeah, the brain is the control center for everything. And if the brain is terrified, it doesn't operate this human body machinery very well. And when you reassure the brain that you're actually okay, everything else seems to take care of itself.
Oh, may I add something? This comes from a totally different angle. I recently came across Stan Tatkin, who is a relationship therapist and only works with perceived threat as the problem in relationships.
Interesting.
That is
That's
wonderful.
in romantic relationships, right?
Romantic relationships arguing appears because one person feels threatened.
Interesting.
And then the primitives, as he calls it, or the primary forces that let us run from a tiger,
Mhm.
they get into function, and that then shapes the whole perception of the world. It shapes what we remember.
Right.
It totally distorts the reality, but we don't know. We think it is the reality, and this has to be overcome. And here are some nice methods for that. But I thought, now this is really interesting because yes, this happened in my relationships too.
Yeah. Very
Exactly. I
simple.
was very conscious of feeling in danger. Yeah.
And what was the terminology this person used? Threat something?
It's a psychobiological approach to relationships. And he says in the relationship, it's important to avoid that one feels threatened, one person in the relationship. I guess it's important in every relationship, but in that one. pretty
Yeah, and
badly.
you can almost
Was
look
so
at the
close.
you can almost look at the world that I'm in as a relationship with ourselves.
Hmm.
And it's our job
Right.
to accurately recognize what's going on and accurately then minimize the threat.
Hmm.
This
Yes.
is a perceived danger response that creates all of these
Hmm.
systems. So
Hmm.
very interesting.
Yes.
Uh, all right. Well, Christiana, I so much appreciate you. I had the pleasure of having you in my group. I think you're still in there. You may be.
Yes, but I canceled now. But
Okay.
I'm very, very happy. I'll come again and say goodbye.
Okay. All right. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story. It's been a pleasure to have you in the community and the group. Um, and if there's ever anything I can do for you, you reach out. But it'll probably take a few days to a week for this to get posted. But keep an eye on the
Mhm.
YouTube channel and you'll see it come across.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay, thank you so much, Dan, for
So much.
everything.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. All right.